Yes, hello YouTube. This is Ryan from the band To Sin with Love. Just I had people asking me questions in regards to how do I get Christian gigs and Christian concerts, and where do I find Christian venues and things like that. So I'm just going to give you a couple real simple things real quick of what I do. The first thing and most important thing is if God's in it, these places will come. These things will happen. But it's got to be in God's plan. It's got to be His will. You can't just do it and say, "Hey, I want to be a rock star. I want to tour." But if God opens that door for you to tour, or if God opens the door just for you to play at your church every week, just go with that, man, because that's His plan. He's got the perfect plan. So it's very simple what I do, and I'll show you kind of how I started it. For a lot of bands that are just starting out trying to get more gigs. I do believe that it's easier to get gigs in the Christian world as opposed to the secular world, just because there's more venues, there's more potential, because there's a lot of churches. You gotta think it's just a lot of churches. I live in the Hampton Roads part of Virginia, and there's a lot of churches where I'm at. So there's a lot of venues, a lot of buildings, a lot of congregations, a lot of I do. That's the other thing is that there's almost a guarantee of people will be there because you're doing something for a church, whether it's a night of worship, whether it's a fundraiser, youth camp, something. So there's guarantees that there will be people there, as opposed to a secular playing in a bar or something where I see a lot of bands. I remember being in high school, I played like a screamo rock band. I hated it. But we played the same two places over and over again. And a lot of bands, locally here, everywhere, they just play the same, two or three, four bars, wherever, small little venues. And the other thing about a lot of those venues is you have to pre-sell tickets, as opposed to churches where you just kind of market it and you show up. It's a lot easier. But there are a lot of challenges with playing at churches. I think the biggest challenge that I faced before I get started is a lot of churches don't exactly know what kind of product you're selling. Like, my band has done 60-something gigs within the last year and a half, 60-something unique concert dates. But a lot of those churches were unsure as to, like, who are these guys? What are y'all doing? Even when I explain to them what I'm doing, which I'll get to in a little bit. But essentially, like, they'll ask me, what are you doing? Because here's the reality: I'm not Hillsong United, I'm not Chris Tomlin, I'm not Third Day, I'm not on that level. So if those bands came, they'd be like, oh yeah, we know exactly what you're doing. But we're a band, and even you who's watching this video, you're a band that's trying to figure out, how do I get started in this? So basically, what I do, very simple, I use Google. And it's good to be networked. You got to network. Social media makes it a little easier to network with people. So I Google and I'll put in, churches in Hampton Roads. And then I'll look through churches and, individual cities or whatever. And I'll find churches that fit, first off, the size, fit the culture, fit the relevant, vibrant style of what I'm looking to do. That would fit my my band, my 7-piece high energy rock band. We are a worship band, so essentially we're a little different than like an actual just a Christian rock band. They could just come in and play music. We're an actual band, worship band that brings people in the presence of God. We do corporate worship. We write corporate worship. So that's how we market ourselves. But essentially, I look for churches that have worship pastors or worship leaders or music ministers on staff, because what that means is that the church is putting some kind of money, some kind of budget into their music ministry. And it makes it better because a lot of places that a starting out band will go to, the band themselves won't have their own sound system or anything like that. So it's good to go into a church that already has a sound system and allows you just to bring your instruments and voices and plug in and sing. So essentially, I get on the phone with the worship pastor, or I email them, whichever becomes the easiest based on my connection with them. Sometimes I know a member of their church. Sometimes I know them actually through something. So as I'm talking to them, what I do specifically is if it's a one night gig within like a 25-mile radius of my house, I tell them that we just want to offer a free night of worship for your church, and we don't want any money. We're not looking for any kind of money, no compensation. We just want a chance just to play. But what's neat is a lot of churches still offer love offerings, and they still allow us to sell our merchandise, CDs, and T-shirts and things like that. So you can still make income on one night local events in that regard. But it's helped us out in this area by not and it helps you out to begin with, because a lot of churches don't have extra money to give out to some random band. So we've done that. It is different if we do travel to a different state, or we do a weekend event, or even locally if we played a camp here right in my city and it was a week long. Unfortunately, I have to have some kind of expenses for me and my band to do that. And I think the thing is that I learned from a local artist here that I can't be ashamed of that. That I do believe that you got to pay to Caesar what's Caesar, so it's important to make some kind of income. So essentially, if I'm talking to the worship pastor, and the worship pastor of the church says, hey, I ain't got nothing going on, but my youth pastor's getting ready to do this and this with the youth group, I'll connect with the youth pastor instead. My band, we just kind of fit that culture. We work well with youth. We do a lot of stuff for youth. So I'm gonna talk to youth pastor, and maybe they got a fall retreat or a spring retreat or something going on. But anyways, so once we connect with these churches and we say we booked an event, and we come to the church, what's neat is if we do really well and the churches really like us and we really connect with the pastors and stuff, what's happened to us a lot is those pastors would connect us to other pastors in their denomination or in their networks. They would, in other churches, so it just opens up more and more opportunity all throughout. But I think a big thing is you got to find venues. And so this is what I do. I Google, if I'm trying to find a Christian concert venue or a Christian coffee house or a church or something, I Google, Christian coffee houses in Maryland, Christian music venues in Virginia, Christian music venues in North Carolina, so on, whatever. And you'd be surprised at the amount of places that pop up. Now, there is a difference. I mean, a lot of the coffee houses and stuff are very small venues. They're not amped for full bands, especially with drums, acoustic drums and stuff. So you got to be aware of that, and you got to make sure you know that. I love Christian coffee houses, but I don't book a lot of them, only because they don't really equate what my band needs. So I just don't know what to do there. So we kind of don't do a lot of them anymore. We just kind of find stages and churches that fit who we are. Now, it is a little harder because you're talking about bigger churches. You're talking about very contemporary, relevant churches that probably have decent worship teams at their church, which means you got to bring your A game. You've got to be professional, because a lot of these churches, it doesn't matter. Like, they look at us as like, okay, sometimes when we were getting started, a lot of churches, and even still today, and churches that don't know who we are, they look at us like, who are these guys? We've already got a band. We don't need that. And the other thing is, and it's been hard, the challenge really for me is that a lot of churches don't know nights of worship. A lot of churches are so busy trying to teach their congregation how to worship that they're fearful of allowing a band, especially a band they don't know much about, even when I give them press kits and things like that. They're fearful because they don't know, they don't want to do a night of worship for their congregation, even if it's free, even if I come in and offer that, just because they've never done anything like that. They don't know how their congregation would accept it. So I think it's about breaking a barrier like that as well. And so the last thing that I've learned, other than just from Googling and stuff, I've learned that a lot of bands in my area do, we go out, especially in the Christian realm, we go out and do solo acts. we're a worship band, so we'll go and we'll do an hour and a half worship night of worship for a church. It'll be all the moments of worship, the high energy, the intimate moments, the whatever. But I find that still, it just limits you to your resources and the work that you put into it. So what I've decided to do is, no bands really in my area do this, is go on the road with another band. So that's what we're planning to do, like with our upcoming spring dates and stuff. So think about it. Just say I had 20 events myself, and that was my resources and the stuff that I do. Well, this other band, they might have 20 of their own, 20 of their own resources. And so that doubles you up. That means you've got 40 gigs and twice the time. And so basically what we do is, since we're both, kind of local artists or whatever, we both have similarly the same popularity in our area. If I book the gig, if it was my connection, my band would headline and the other band would open, and vice versa if they booked it. And so what we've done is, I think it would be like a 40-minute set list for the opening band, and then like a 10-minute intermission, kind of like you would see at like Winter Jam, where a guy would come out and speak. And then, of course, after that, the headliner would probably play for like an hour. And that just broadens the base and makes it more and gets you connected, and, just more and more outlets. It's all about growing. I think that my band is kind of tailored to doing a lot with youth camps and youth conferences, and I think that that's kind of the road that long term we're trying to head down, hopefully within the next year. But there's so many different outlets that you can go down. But it's just all about connecting with people. It's all about knowing them, and it's using Google. It's using Google to find places that are relevant, places still in existence. If you have any questions, just feel free to leave me a comment. If not, check out my band at facebook.com/tosendwithlove. Thank you. All right, have a good one.